Dexter Lawrence to remain suspended for Clemson's title game matchup with Alabama. Clemson's hope for having one of the nation's top defensive linemen available for the national championship game against Alabama have officially been extinguished. Christmas Eve, reports emerged that 3 Clemson football players, including star defensive tackle, had phosphorestin, a banned substance used to help increase muscle mass and strength, and would be suspended for the college football playoff semifinal game against Notre Dame. And, much to the chagrin of, although the university confirmed it would pursue an appeal of the ruling that would allow the linemen to play against the Crimson Tide. In a statement Thursday afternoon, athletic director confirmed that Lawrence, along with tight end and offensive lineman, will remain suspended and will not be available for Monday night's title game. The trio will, however, be permitted to travel with the team to California. Radakovich also noted that the university will continue the appeals process with the NCAA on behalf of the players. After winning the ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year award for the 2016 season, Lawrence has been a first-team All-Conference selection each of the past 2 seasons. Galloway, a true freshman, has caught 5 passes for 52 yards and a touchdown, while Giella, a redshirt junior, has played in 19 games during his time with the Tigers, including 8 this season. Some players go to Michigan to win the Big Ten and compete for a national title. So far, Michigan linebacker has done neither of those things, and he is not about to leave Ann Arbor without giving it one more chance. Hudson announced with a statement on his Twitter account on Friday he intends to return to the Wolverines next fall with a graphic reading "Unfinished Business." Michigan football has unfinished business, Hudson said in a statement shared on his Twitter account Friday afternoon. While we had some great moments this past season, we're just scratching the surface. We want more. Michigan lost a chance to play for a Big Ten championship with a regular season loss to Ohio State. The Wolverines were thus eliminated from college football playoff contention as well for the second time in 3 years under similar circumstances. The Wolverines also lost in the bowl game as well, but Hudson noted other goals he has before leaving Michigan behind for good. "I have unfinished business," Hudson said in his statement. "On and off the field. I want to continue to be a leader and example for my teammates. I want to improve my game. I want to work toward my degree. I want to play against for Wolverine fans across the country." Hudson recorded 44 tackles with 3.5 tackles for a loss and 2 sacks this season for Michigan. With linebacker and a handful of other notable defensive players moving on to the NFL, Hudson has a chance to become one of the top defensive players on the field for the Wolverines next season as a leader and a leading contributor. Add one more Georgia Bulldog to the list of players leaving Athens early for a shot at the NFL. Running back joined a handful of Georgia players making their decisions known Friday evening. Holyfield shared a statement on his Twitter account to confirm he is leaving behind a year of eligibility to go to the NFL in 2019. "I would like to take this time to officially declare for the 2019 NFL Draft," Holyfield said in a statement on his Twitter account. "I go forward, while always reflecting on my time in Athens, knowing I will work tirelessly to make Dog Nation proud." Holyfield was one of Georgia's leading rushers this season with 1,018 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. Together with, Georgia featured one of the top running back combos in college football this past season. Now, Swift will likely take on the lead role while looks to get another running back ready to step into. Holyfield joins receivers and tight end in. "It was a busy day of decision-making for Georgia football players, and this has nothing to do with Georgia's top 3 receivers from the 2018 season. Wide receiver and tight end, all declared themselves eligible for the 2019 NFL Draft on Friday. I could not imagine any other program preparing me for the next step the way this one has," Ridley said in a statement. "Thank you to Coach, and the entire phenomenal coaching staff for molding me into the athlete I am today. My experience here has been nothing less than absolutely amazing. After thinking through this decision and speaking with my family and my coaches, I have decided to forego my senior season and declare for the 2019 NFL Draft," Nada said in a statement on his Twitter account Friday afternoon. "I truly feel in my heart that this is the best decision for me, and I am ready to pursue another lifelong dream of mine, playing in the NFL." Joining the parade of social media statements was Hardman, who said after much prayer and thought, "My parents and I have made the decision that it." Ridley was Georgia's leading receiver with 570 yards this season and a team-high 9 touchdowns. Hardman was just behind him with 532 yards and 7 touchdowns on 10 fewer receptions this season. Hardman had more receiving yards than Ridley in 2017 with 418 yards to 218 yards as both came behind and in the stat sheet. Nada was Georgia's 3rd leading receiver this season with 430 yards and 3 touchdowns in 14 games. His season was highlighted by a season-high 81 yards with a touchdown in the SEC championship game against Alabama when he averaged 20.25 yards per reception. Nada had 9 catches for 114 yards and 2 touchdowns in 2017, which was a drop from his 2016 season with 361 yards and 3 touchdowns. On top of all of that news, and the idea that comes the news that Georgia is also losing another tight end to a transfer. Is leaving Georgia for another Big Ten school, Illinois. Ford announced his decision with a statement on Twitter as well, citing the health of his grandparents as a factor in wanting to be closer to them as he moves forward. Alabama and Clemson will meet in the College Football Playoff National Championship game Monday night in Santa Clara in what will be the 4th straight meeting in the postseason between the ACC and SEC champions and the 3rd in the last 4 seasons to determine the national champion. For two programs who met just 13 times from 1904 through 1975, the Tigers and Crimson Tide have developed one of the most unique rivalries in the sport, and what is happening between Alabama and Clemson may be unprecedented. It has become college football's equivalent to Lakers-Celtics in that these two programs are each individually so dominant, but they have done so at a time when there is an equal force waiting to line up on the other side of the field at the end of the year to determine who is truly number one. It is somewhat fitting that the rise of both of these programs can be traced back to the 2008 season when these two schools squared off in Atlanta for the Chick-fil-A kickoff game. Was in his second season coaching the Crimson Tide after going a mediocre 7-6 in his first season at Alabama after leaving the Miami Dolphins. His Tide started the year number 24 in the AP Top 25 but figured to have a tough challenge on their hands with number 9 Clemson, who started the season with at the helm. Little did anyone truly expect at the time, but this one game should have been a preview of things to come. Alabama jumped out to a 13-0 lead in the first quarter in Atlanta with a pair of field goals and a short touchdown run by. Alabama extended their lead to 23-3 as the game reached halftime and Clemson's opened the second half with a 96-yard touchdown to provide a much-needed spark for Clemson. But Alabama shut the Tigers down from there and tacked on a touchdown and went on to win 34-10. Alabama would win their next 11 games to finish off an undefeated regular season that included a 41-30 victory at number 3 Georgia and a 27-21 win at number 15 LSU. But the Tide lost a number 1 versus number 2 SEC title game against Tim Tebow and the Florida Gators, coached by none other than, and Alabama was taken down in the Sugar Bowl by Utah. While Alabama was doing that, Clemson made a notable change at head coach in the middle of the season with Bowden giving way to assistant coach. Swinney may not have held on to the role if not for a regular season victory against rival South Carolina, but it is a good thing he did. Over the course of the next 6 seasons, Saban had continued to keep Alabama as a national title contender, winning 3 BCS national championships in 2009, 2011 and 2012. Swinney was slowly but surely building his own juggernaut, although the return of Florida State as a national power was standing in the way of the ultimate prize. But all of that changed beginning in 2015. Clemson started the season number 12 in the AP Top 25 and methodically moved their way up the ranking. But in mid-November, Clemson took over the top ranking in the AP poll and never looked back en route to their first college football playoff. There was just one final hurdle that & just could not clear. It was Alabama. The second college football playoff national championship game was one for the ages. Alabama was the battle-tested national title contending program that had been for years, but Clemson was looking to prove they finally belonged on the big stage after years of working to get here. And although Clemson came up on the short end of the final score, they proved they were not a fluke that was about to go away. The seeds of the first playoff battle between Alabama and Clemson were supposed to be led by defense, but this was an offensive showcase from the start. A 50-yard touchdown run by offered an early suggestion that maybe Clemson wasn't ready for this moment, but caught 2 touchdown passes from before the end of the first quarter to put that idea to rest. Clemson was there to take care of business. Tied at 14-14 at halftime, a wild game was about to burst wide open. Hauled in a 53-yard pass from early in the third quarter, but Clemson struck back to take a 24-21 lead into the fourth quarter, much to the joy of then Alabama offensive coordinator. Alabama took the lead once again with a long pass to Howard, this time a 51-yard play with 9:45 to play. Clemson made it a 4-point game with a field goal but responded with a 95-yard touchdown return on the ensuing kickoff to make it 38-27 midway through the fourth quarter. The Tigers cut the lead to 5 points with another Watson touchdown pass with 4:40 to play, but Alabama's offense would not yield with another touchdown run by Henry with 1:07 to play for a 45-33 lead. Watson added one more late touchdown pass to finish off an otherwise brilliant performance for Clemson with 405 passing yards and 4 touchdowns and 73 rushing yards against the Tide, but the loss would merely serve as motivation for unfinished business as Alabama celebrated their first national championship in the young playoff era. The win was a bit of unfinished business for Alabama too, as they were upset in the semifinal the previous season by eventual national champion Ohio State. The 2016 season was given a landscape that looked like it would be a season-long journey to get to the rematch between Alabama and Clemson. The Tide were given a preseason #1 ranking in the AP Top 25, and the Tide never relinquished that ranking all year. Clemson, despite being the defending national champions and having Watson back at quarterback, started the year at #2 and floated within the top 5 all season long and headed to the playoff ranked #3 in the AP poll. Both teams easily took care of their semifinal opponents in the college football playoff, with Clemson blanking Ohio State 31-0 and Alabama dispatching of Washington 24-7 to set the stage for the rare college football national championship game rematch. Once again, we were in for a show. Alabama took a 14-0 lead early in the second quarter on the strength of a second touchdown run by running back, but a touchdown run by Watson provided a much-needed spark for Clemson midway through the second quarter against a stingy Alabama defensive presence. With Alabama leading the Tigers 17-7 midway through the third quarter, Watson connected with Renfrow to bring Clemson to within 3 points. But later in the third quarter, a long pass play to Howard would bring up some horrible flashbacks to a season ago. A 68-yard pass to Howard gave Alabama a 24-14 lead late in the third quarter. But Clemson would not give in. The Tigers cut into the lead in the first minute of the fourth quarter with a touchdown pass from Watson and nearly 10 minutes later, Clemson had their first lead of the game when scored a short touchdown run. Down for the first time all game, Hurts responded and gave Alabama the lead with his own 30-yard touchdown run with 2:07 to play. Too much time. Clemson executed a 2-minute drive to perfection and capped the drive and the game with a Watson touchdown pass to Renfrow from 2 yards out with 1 second to play. A field goal would have tied the game, but Watson delivered the long-awaited national championship to Clemson in arguably as dramatic fashion as did for Texas against USC in the Rose Bowl. For the second year in a row, Alabama-Clemson delivered the dramatics with flair, this one more enticing than the previous. The third meeting in the playoff era between Alabama and Clemson was not at all close to living up to the high bar the previous 2 meetings had set. For starters, the third meeting took place in the semifinal round instead of the national championship. Watson had moved on to the NFL, with Kelly Bryant stepping in as the new starter for the Tigers. Clemson was still incredibly good, but Bryant was no magician like Watson. Alabama had suffered just one loss all season long, the regular season finale against Auburn that knocked Alabama out of the SEC championship game picture and left Alabama hoping the selection committee would allow them an opportunity to wiggle into the playoff. They did, placing Alabama as the 4th seed, unfortunately for Clemson. Just as Ohio State had done to them in the first year of the playoff, Alabama used the 4 seed to take advantage of their playoff opportunity by dominating Clemson defensively. The Tigers managed just 6 points in the Sugar Bowl semifinal, both by way of field goals in the second and third quarters. Alabama took a 10-0 lead in the first quarter and that was all they needed. There would be no magical fourth quarter for the ages and the highlight reels this time. Neither team scored a point in the fourth quarter. Perhaps the previous 2 meetings led to the coaching staffs of both programs to tighten things up in the fourth quarter. Or, perhaps, Clemson just did not have the same firepower on offense they needed to make a game of it this time. Alabama would go on to top SEC champion Georgia in overtime in the national championship game in Atlanta the following week, with coming to the rescue after a rough showing by Hurts. Tagovailoa would keep the job for the 2018 season as Alabama once again has strung together a #1 ranking from the start of the season to the national title game. Clemson, who started the season #2 and made their own quarterback change with the departure of Bryant and the rise of freshman Dexter Lawrence, now has the offense that may be needed. Will this year's 4th consecutive meeting between Alabama and Clemson go down in the memory banks of college football fans as an all-time classic like the 2017 meeting? We'll have to wait until Monday to find out.